Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
All right. Let's see. So, new pull requests this week. We've got optimization for NVMe device from Optimisteasy, I believe, the right way to say that. And Kifu's going to review that, but probably not with super high priority because he's got a lot of other stuff he's looking at the moment. There's a PR from Majian Peng to change the OSD opnum threads per shard SSD value to 1. I did periodically I do test looking at this kind of thing, and I don't recall seeing the same kind of slowdown that he saw in this case, where with higher Q depths he's seeing random reads slower with 2 threads than 1 thread. But I do recall seeing some kind of wonkiness in here, so it's probably worth looking at again. Um, we can maybe talk about that a little bit more later. Let's see. Buffer list use iterators for comparison operators. Oh yeah, I remember looking at this earlier. Yehuda reviewed that. Needs review, but otherwise looks good. There are a number of PRs that closed that were newly opened without comment. They were not merged. There's an NVMe one for, it just says remove vector. I didn't actually read the code, but that was closed quickly. There's another one for zlib window bits configurable for compression. That one was closed right away. And then there was another older one from Stalebot that was closed by the Stalebot that Chi Inguo, I said it right, for fixing broken, unused calculations, apparently in BlueStore. There also were a couple that merged. Optimization for throttle, for not locking for atomic type updates. My PR for BlueFS buffered IO merged. That was a real small change just to disable that by default again, since it was causing all kinds of issues with the kernel going into swap after page cache filled up for unknown reasons. But apparently it dramatically helps when there's a lot of long-running RGW traffic. So there's that. And then, another one for me. This is just doc updates or hardware recommendations that had been sitting there for a couple of months. So hopefully those will provide slightly more recent recommendations on what people can expect with very broadly what they can expect with different hardware and what they should shoot for. Okay, we've got about half a dozen of updated PRs here. Adam's RocksDB sharding PR unfortunately did not pass tests within the last 2 weeks. I think he rebased that though, so hopefully it's now working. Igor's deferred rights PR that we've discussed here in the past, that was reviewed by Adam positively, and I believe that's now been approved. Also, his hybrid allocator, Adam also reviewed that. Other Adam, Adam Emerson, his objection triumphant PR got updated, no longer needs rebase. Not quite sure where that is. Adam, you hear any news on that front?
Yes, it is passing most tests. I tried to do one more. Something screwy happened with Shaman and didn't build one of the architectures, so I'm trying to make it rebuild and resubmit. But it looks fairly good.
Cool. All right. Good deal. There were a couple here that were closed by the Stalebot, but were reopened by Kifu. Speed up pool removal by introducing collectionless prefetch. I don't know if maybe Kifu's planning on looking at it. I'm not sure. It's been there for quite a long time. And then there's also this optimized mutex contention by Majian Peng. Um, yeah, I'm not sure who's the right person to look at that now. Maybe Igor. I could try, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to try to uh, guarantee that's safe. So anyway, that's it for updated PRs. There's a bunch of stuff here with no movement. We should go back to the onode pin unpin logic one that Igor wrote. That was to replace something I had tried that wasn't working very well, and his solution looks much more elegant but wasn't passing tests. So we need to go back and get that fix in, I think. And then also got another one in here for reducing the memory footprint of the onode structures. And that would be really good to get in soon too, along with the onode double caching PR of mine. But that will wait until after the cache sharding one is done.
Yeah, let's get
Sorry,
those
Josh,
in
what were you
early in
gonna
the
say?
physics cycle so we can get
Yeah,
testing on
exactly.
them.
Yep, I agree. It'd be good to get this stuff in soon. All right, I think that's about it for pull requests. Okay, so Majian Peng's testing that he did, what he seems to be seeing is that when we have a Q depth above 4, doing random reads on NVMe drives with just a single OSD, he's seeing what appears to be like a halving of throughput and an increase in latency with 2 threads per shard versus 1 thread per shard. I don't recall seeing that, but I'm going to go back and try to look at some of the numbers I've seen. I seem to recall in the past, though, that we do have a couple of specific reasons why we want multiple threads per shard. Maybe related to backfill or recovery, but I don't remember for sure. Does anyone remember exactly? And Josh, maybe you do. Are there situations where having that extra thread for each shard is really important?
Yeah, I think and it is helpful in the backfill and recovery case sometimes because then you do have some parallel processing going on at that point. You can have something
Yeah,
locked doing some operations while another operation operates on another object in the PG. Um,
yeah,
I'm not sure exactly to what degree that matters though. I'm not sure if we did a ton of detailed testing on that regard, but we have seen it in practice a little bit help.
sure. So, okay, maybe then we should at least try initially to diagnose why having that extra thread per shard appears to be causing, in Magia John Pink's testing, this kind of reduction in throughput. Why it's contending like that? Rather than just going to one thread per shard.
Yeah, I think we certainly shouldn't jump in without understanding what's going on.
Yeah. I remember like last summer, I was kind of digging in thinking that we should maybe change how some of this works, but I never really got too much into it. It was at the same time I was looking at the op tracker and how it's doing things and thinking that we might want we do bad things in both cases, if I remember right, but I don't remember the details very well. But anyway, yep. So that's a project maybe for Pacific. All right. Moving on. I don't have a lot to say here yet for the CFS water cooler slides. So I gave a presentation earlier this week. Slides are there if anyone wants to read them. There's a video. It's not up yet, apparently, but I'll try to include that next week or something. Basically, this is just stuff I've talked about here before, but looking at kind of a summary of all of the IO 500 testing we did with Ceph and kind of the performance that we started out with and what we were able to get up to, and kind of the future work that might help us get even farther. Real brief summary: we're in 9th place if we compare against the SCE 19 numbers from last November. So that's not bad. This is for the 10 node challenge. Also, we're only running on 10 nodes with co-located clients where that wasn't actually required by the challenge. Challenge is only 10 client nodes with any number of storage nodes behind it. So we're actually doing not bad. I think we can do a lot better though. It'd be really nice to see us up in like the top 5 next fall. So anyway, I'm doing some work on trying to look into if there are ways that we can improve some of those scores. That's about it for that. Josh, you had mentioned you want to talk about performance CI. Do you want to kind of take over? I don't hear you. I don't know if you're trying to talk or not. Okay, well.
Hey, Mark. Until Josh's mic works, I just wanted to follow up on our serious discussion about the performance CI stuff and how we can break up, the tasks that would be involved in getting some of those pieces, at least worked on by somebody, right? So I guess the idea was that we had at least 2 main things that we talked about. One was about doing Jenkins integration for all the PRs, not just Crimson PRs, when it comes to performance testing. And the other piece that we talked about was doing some long-running tests using the existing Truthology CBD framework. When it comes to further details as to what is required as next steps for each of them, I guess when it comes to the Truthology bit, we'll probably need to figure out a way to tag machines in the Sepia lab, which we can just say that we are going to use for long running tests. I think we'll need David Galloway's help. So I think I discussed this with Josh briefly. The idea was that we already have some existing Smithy machines. We can probably separate out some Smithy machines and call them something else and immediately start using them for that kind of tests. I think the second piece would be to make sure that the Truthology integration with CBD that we have is able to run on multiple nodes, and we need to figure out how many nodes would be a good start. What should be the scale of those tests? And I think the third piece is if we get the first 2 pieces integrated, we already have a mechanism of storing these results. So currently these archives, the Truthology archives, store the performance results for like 6 months or even a year now. So we need a way to visualize these results. So I guess the part that Sridhar was interested in working on can be crucial here. We don't need the database part of it, but we need a way for us to pull those results from there and start looking at some time series data in a human readable, easy manner. So I have a feeling that the first 2 pieces are not going to be very difficult, and it just needs some focus on existing things that we already have. The last piece is something that we can probably discuss a little further as to what is required to get that. If we want to start with what is there, the existing stuff that Sridhar has, how can we start doing something simple as comparing or making a graph out of 2 FIO results and hosting it in a place that we can start looking at it.
So I'd suggest for that last piece, since I agree with you, the first two pieces are just kind of getting the hardware organized and set up for this. But for that last piece, I think we should try to figure out some kind of local index for the directories, right? Because the directories themselves almost serve as an authoritative source of the benchmark data. You've got all of the original results there. You've got the metadata for each test that you worked on. But if we can index that, then you should be able to do queries like you had said with time series data, looking over time, how have this directory of results that's been just added to over time, how have those results changed over a given query period? That's kind of what I would suggest doing. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Are you thinking about something that could just go into like standalone CBT and can then also be used by this tautology framework? Like you're just thinking of like one mechanism that can be used by both, right?
Exactly. And it could be in the CBT command. We could, just have Python there that if you run it in a certain way, you can create this index and then query against it. Or it could be a separate command that just lives in the CBT directory. It doesn't really matter that much. But the goal would be that you can just point it at some existing directory of results that have been created, and it will go through and then, basically walk through the directory structure, create this index at the top level within the top level directory, and then that index is what you can perform future queries against for doing your time series plotting or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only extra piece that I can see can be useful. I'm misremembering. Do you know if the existing CBT results also capture the commit, the Ceph SHA-1 or the commit that is being used to run the tests? Because that's something that will be critical if we want to. Tautology already does that, so that's some information that we can just extract from the tautology results or the YAML that gets collected.
Yeah, let me just check quick, because I thought we did that, but then now I'm not 100% sure. Go here.
Seems like the kind of thing we could add to tautology. Just to CBT, so that CBT would capture it in the future. We don't do that now.
Tautology already captures it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
so that's
I meant CBT.
Yeah. If that's the only thing that's the only missing piece, I'd say that, and that's not very difficult to add. So if we do that, then I think one framework for both standalone and the tautology-based integration would work.
Yeah, I think we definitely want one framework.
Yeah, it doesn't look to me like we are capturing it now. I think I just didn't get around to adding it because I've been copying the OSD logs into that directory whenever I run CBT. So my guess is I just never got around to it. But yeah, it should be, ridiculously easy to add, right? You just run, Ceph OSD or Ceph -1 version and, pump it out into that directory. So yeah, that's easy. We can do that. I think if we do that index scheme, we should think carefully about the schema for that database. But hopefully, I'm guessing we're going to get it wrong. So I'm hoping that we can make that index really easy to regenerate, and we can change it whenever we need to, and then the goal would be that this thing kind of is a living index. It changes over time. It's it's something somewhat ephemeral. And then Neha, I think we probably want some kind of more centralized thing for like the tautology results that you can go and query more directly through some kind of web interface. Is that kind of what you were thinking as well?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think the centralized index could be a database, right? So that's something that we could easily, I could have one database for Jenkins results, one database for tautology results, and maybe Grafana pulling from whatever that database that is to do those historical graphs.
Yeah. That can come. My thought is that could come after, right? So we start out by just having this kind of index that we build that's ephemeral that we can query and do things against, and hopefully then that will teach us, what we've missed and what we haven't, done well in this in this query thing that we're building. And then once we have that kind of figured out and can make graphs from it or whatever, then we could have another piece that can query that to fill in the kind of like um, uh, our Teuthology archive or whatever it's going to be,
Sure.
the visual thing.
The visual piece would certainly be separate from the indexing.
Presumably would we have that tie into Pulpito? Would that be kind of what people would want, you think?
Yeah, it would probably make sense for a given run Pulpito who was running perf jobs to have a link to the results there. But it doesn't have to be like, I don't think it would require any special integration necessarily.
Okay.
I guess for the continuous indexing, if we wanted to just make that, we run it include the results of any kind of performance suite that Teuthology runs, we could automatically add that to the Teuthology index essentially after each suite is finished.
Sure. Presumably we could have this tool be a little smart too, right? If we have like these indexes versioned, we could have it just regenerate it whenever it's, the schema changes, blow away the old one and remake the new one. So the user never even has to think about it.
Yeah. I think maybe anytime we do make a big schema change, we could just run the full reindex operation of some sort.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it's not going to change every day, right?
No, I wouldn't think so. I assume it would be like, whenever someone needs to add something or whenever someone realizes we didn't do something right, slightly needs to change the schema, we just have it blow away the old one and remake a new one.
Yeah, and I think that's fine because even if that operation takes like a day or two, that's no problem if we don't do it more than once a day. So we're only doing that like once every few months, so it's not a big deal.
My hope is it wouldn't even take that long either. This is not. I suppose it depends on how much archive data we really capture.
Yeah. But I guess my point is we don't need to worry about its efficiency so much.
Yeah. You could also have lots of them, right? You could make one that you could do this on like a per month basis or per 6 month basis or something. Have different schema or different indexes for different months or time periods or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we could certainly start checking it up if it became a problem.
Yeah.
I guess start off with it simple, just to like keep everything in one place.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it becomes a problem, we could certainly just start it that way. So, Sridhar, does this seem like something that would be, up your alley? Oh, maybe he's not. His mic's not on, or maybe he's not available at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Can you hear me properly now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't particularly worked with databases, but I should be able to, kind of pick things up and, do what's necessary. But I would initially need some guidance on a few things. I guess once I pick things up, I should be able to for and contribute in this space. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I can help out a little bit. It's been a long time since I've used like SQLite, but it's not super hard. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I'm already experimenting with SQLite. So I'll probably continue experimenting on this until we come up with the proper way to, like you mentioned, we need a proper schema, right? So until we come up with the right schema, I should be able to ramp up on this.
Cool. Yeah, I'm assuming that we will probably be growing the schema over time. That what we come up with initially is probably not going to be what we end up with in a year or two. So being able to recreate that and change that is probably going to be important. But I don't think it should be a problem. We should be able to do that and have it be okay.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
when you're talking about the SQLite, are you thinking of like kind of summarizing each individual benchmark run in SQLite within that directory structure, and later pulling them into a centralized database?
So I think my thought is that we're probably not going to really have one centralized database for this kind of stuff. We might, like, for Teuthology, we certainly will. But there was a point back a couple of years ago where Patrick wanted to be able to take all this stuff and dump it into like some kind of Ceph brag thing. And I know that the guys in the Perf lab have this big Elasticsearch thing that they're dumping a bunch of like Ceph results into. So my assumption here is that over time we're going to have different people wanting to put data in different places, and if we can make some kind of fairly flexible underlying thing that makes it easy to do queries against, that will let us kind of shove it into whatever we want down the road. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're talking about the SQLite essentially being not just for a summary of the data in a given run, but also the data points as well, potentially, or pointers to them.
Yeah. So I figure that the authoritative source of the benchmarking data is what's in the directory, right? It's the direct output of the benchmarks that were run. But that's all very disparate, right? It's each benchmark has its own format for dumping data out. It takes forever to iterate through that directory structure and read all of these things. So we don't really want to just directly go to it. If we can have an intermediate source in SQLite or some other embedded database, we can query all this stuff in a standard way and have it be fast.
Got it. Okay, so this is kind of a way to abstract out away the different kinds of benchmarks and have a common way to read like time series as well as overall summary data.
Yeah, and it's hopefully it'll be easy to regenerate, right? We change the schema, we can just remake it. We or something else changes, we add more data into CBT. Now we can. That gets more complicated, I guess, because now we need versioning in two places, maybe. But maybe that gives us the ability to hide some of that from the whatever's consuming it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had a question for Kifu, if you're around, Kifu. We've got a couple of extra nodes now available for Jenkins that David just set up. Is there how does Jenkins use those? Can your stuff already make use of them? I don't really know how it works.
So you're asking how Crimson Performance are using the Jenkins layer for performance test. That's the question.
My question is David Galloway added 3 more nodes for Jenkins, and I was wondering, can your tests use the new nodes?
I think we are already using And in center 04 for Crimson test, I think that's quite enough for us. But I'm not sure what your question is for testing what like classic OSD.
For classic OSD, or does Jenkins treat those nodes like a pool where it will use any node, or do you have to specify the node that you want the test to run on?
I think currently Jenkins just choose from like four nodes which are labeled with performance. All of them are CentOS 8, if I recall correctly.
Yes, yes. So right now Jenkins can use if one node is busy, it can use one of the other nodes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Would it be tough to enable tests using that flag on classic OSD?
Not really. I think the difficult part is to figure out a decent criteria to mark if a test is we have performance regression or not. Currently, I don't really think our criteria are good, because sometimes it's passed, sometimes it's not. Even if I change a letter in document, it could fail. So it's not stable. I mean, we need to improve that part.
Sure. Josh, do you think would it make any sense to just try to start running Kifu's tools with classic OSD by changing that flag and just seeing what happens?
Yeah, I think that would be a great place to start. We can try triggering it on a bunch of PRs and see what kind of variability we get, and figure out what to do next from there.
Kifu, I don't really know very much about Jenkins. Is it something that we can just add somewhere to run the classic test?
I think so. We have a script named, it's put on the source script. It's named run CBT, and we actually have an option named classic OSD. So what you need is just to copy another Jenkins job builder script settings in Ceph-builder, and pass classic OSD to that script, and you'll be ready. It's quite straightforward. And I can even do it if you like.
Oh, that'd be fantastic if you don't mind.
Yes, I can do it. And
I think that's a link to the configuration that Keith was talking about.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Oh, cool. So let's do that then, and then just see what we find out. That can maybe start us out on starting getting results from this.
Yes, but
I guess
I
another
do believe
aspect.
there's a lot of room we can improve in the script and the test cases. It's very preliminary.
Sure. I guess right now we're probably not keeping those results around from Jenkins very long, so we probably need to do whatever analysis we want to do after that test runs initially. Is that right?
No, I think the methodology for of this test is to run master and run the change, which merged into the master, and compare the test results using a set of criteria, which is hardwired in the test case itself. So we don't keep the test result.
When I was talking to David Galloway about setting up these nodes, we did talk about having these nodes mount CephFS.
Yes, we talked about it before. Yes.
Did that happen? Are they mounting CephFS?
I think that's something we need to work on.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Kifu, I had a simple question for you. So, when you said these results are not persistent, but we are running these tests against master and a particular PR and then dumping a result. So, is it? Do you think it will be easy for us to integrate a mechanism that we can spit out the results or like some sort of a summary of results into the PR itself? So that like if somebody goes back and looks at the results, they know why a test passed or failed.
I think about it. Actually, I've been thinking about it before. We need to some
Okay.
way to post that result to GitHub, to using some API exposed by GitHub. But that kind of API is we need some token for it. But I didn't took a lot of time to investigate in this. It's doable
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that's something that'll be really useful, and I can help explore that bit.
Mm.
For persisting the data, does CephFS, our CephFS server, does that make sense? That's kind of how I was thinking about it. Does that make sense to other people as well?
Yeah, that's where we're persisting all the pathology results as well, so it'd be easy to access everything from the same place.
Cool.
But Mark, what's the purpose of persisting the test result? Just to save the build time and the time for performing the test of a baseline?
I think there's a couple of things, right? One is that if you're doing a comparison of a PR against master, we probably don't want to rerun master tests every time, right? We want
Okay,
to be
I
able
see.
to go back and say, we already ran this copy of master, so don't rerun it. We've already got the result.
Okay, I got a point. We discussed this before. I just wanted to make sure we are on the same page. And to achieve that goal, we need to exactly same a pool which contains only the same settings. All the machines assigned to that pool should have the same spec, exactly the same spec.
Mm-hmm.
That's a precondition
Yeah, I
to
think
have that goal.
I think the inserted nodes are going to be very good for that because they're all on a private network. They're all configured very similarly. I think we'll get fairly close results out of them, hopefully.
Yes, they are all sent to 8 and using the same NVMe drive. Yes, that's it. Yeah, you're correct.
If we incorporate the version information from Ceph into the way that we hash the directory structure name for the result, then CBT shouldn't rerun the test if we have the exact same version of Ceph trying to run the exact same benchmark that previously was run.
Yes, we discussed this possibility because it's hashed and we can reuse the test result.
Exactly. And so it won't rerun it. Instead, it will just try rerunning it, but then it's already exists, so it will just not do it. So then we will have a nice...
in general, it's a good idea, but the number of merges that we have, in general, we might end up doing fresh runs, right? Like we are merging PRs like every hour or every I don't know. I mean, what the frequency at which we're doing it. So I mean, it's good to have that optimization that we have the results stored, but we may end up doing fresh runs because the SHA-1 is just going to keep changing.
Yeah, we need to trim the test result periodically or based on the number. But
well, it'll happen though, right? Because we have to compare the PR against whatever the PR was built against. So it will be if that PR if it's based on top of whatever the current master is, we have to test against the current master.
Yes.
Do we strictly need to
Yeah,
test it against exactly every SHA-1? I mean, there are plenty of merges that don't affect performance at all, like documentation fixes or things at higher levels that
That's
um,
that's
wouldn't
that's
matter.
exactly what I was thinking next. That can we say that can we use one SHA-1 that is valid for like so many hours or a particular period of time?
I
Then we
don't
can
think that
definitely
time
use that
is good.
optimization.
I don't think time is a good metric though, right? Because it's possible that a really important PR emerged in the last hour that also that you don't want to skip when you're doing your new test. It'd be difficult.
I think it's not worth it to think about it, because you know if we compare two PR, oh sorry, two branches, one is master, another is the PR based on this master, the recompiling process would be very fast because we have a C cache and the test results cached. It's normally take no more than 30 minutes
Yeah,
for both rounds. That's my recollection for Crimson build.
yeah. You could build master first, run the test, and then you
Exactly,
could apply the PR and rebuild, and it should be very quick.
indeed.
Yeah, I see.
I
That
guess
way
another way to
too,
look at
you
it
have
would be like considering what optimizations are worth it would be like how much test time do we need versus how much do will we be consuming for like if we're running these only against pairs tagged with performance, there aren't tons and tons of those.
that's true.
So maybe we wouldn't even be at capacity with the current four machines even if we're rebuilding every time, rerunning
Yeah.
master again every time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Josh. We might be suffering from premature optimization here, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Also, it wouldn't be bad to have a historical record of master. If we have regular update points of master, that gives us a really nice historical record of data to mine
That's
that we can
that's
go
what
back
the
and look
other
at.
that's what the other piece can help us with, right? The tautology, a long-running test that we do every so often.
Well, but there's I think there's value here, right? Where you have kind of a historical record of single OSD tests from Jenkins that are compared against these PRs that are coming in. But then you also have this record of teuthology where you have bigger test runs across more OSDs that you can't easily do in with the Jenkins tests. So kind of the way I'm seeing this is that Jenkins, you've got like single OSD tests that you're running really quickly, really often, comparing against PRs. And then you've got kind of these more elaborate, bigger tests from Teuthology that are spanning multiple nodes and maybe are more long running and more kind of extensive than the Jenkins test. Is that
Yeah,
what
yeah,
do you think,
sure.
Nia?
Yeah, I think that's the ideal case. That's what we want to get. But I'm just trying to say if we don't want to like optimize for storing or persisting results for the Jenkins bit, we can still use our tautology framework to do the same and have like single node Rados bench results and still persist them and look at them over time.
If we do it right, I'm hoping that the result directory looks the same in both cases and the indexes are the same in both cases. So it should be really easy to pull data from either one of those sources or both of them.
Yeah, probably.
All right, cool. Well, sounds good to me. For next steps, would just getting the tests running for classical OSD and Jenkins be a good step, guys?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a good first
Good
step on
beginning.
that front. I guess the other aspects with the next creation, it sounds like maybe Mark, you and Sweetheart can discuss about exactly what like an initial schema could be.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Kifo, with the
Sridhar,
Jenkins bit, if there's anything that I can help with, please let me know, or I'm willing to jump in there and get my hands dirty.
Sure. I'll keep you updated, and if I need anything, I will ping you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Guys, I had worked with GitHub apps earlier, and it does something like Jenkins does to a new PR. Like if we ask Jenkins test this, Jenkins please test this, so it triggers an operation. So similar way, maybe we can use some event handling function for just posting the results from any, I think, tautology or CBT runs. Maybe you can, I posted the link to that. Maybe you guys can take a look and work with it.
Thanks. Yeah, that looks useful.
Thanks. Yeah.
cool. My kind of dream there is hopefully that we can have labels in GitHub be able to trigger different runs of different CBT runs with different parameters. I don't know how hard that is or not, but that's kind of what I'm hoping we can do at some point, and then have it just automatically post it in the comments for the pull request.
I think what Neha mentioned in pathology specific talks, that is possible mostly if we trigger it using a comment. Not sure about the labels, but can take a look maybe.
Maybe, yeah, my real hope here, right, is that if that there's no intervention by us. We don't have to tell it to do anything. It just sees, oh, there's a performance label and there's an RGW label, so I'm going to run an RGW test and then post the results in the comments.
That's an interesting finding. Can take a look. Let's see.
Cool. All right. So anything else on this, guys?
I was just thinking maybe we can use we don't have to spend the whole hour discussing this every week, but we can spend 10 minutes just discussing what progress or no progress, if not any, on a weekly basis in this meeting regarding this whole project. If anybody's getting stuck or anybody doesn't have the bandwidth, maybe somebody else can jump in and help. That's the idea.
Sorry. Yeah, sure. That seems very fine. Some weeks we might have, occasionally we have people that come in that want to use the whole hour to present their findings or something.
Yeah, that's fine. In case we're just doing updates or internal stuff, then.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, sounds good then. All right. Well, we'll see what we can get done, and we'll talk about it again next week. Have a good week, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.
Week.